Greetings, this is Black Light. As promised, I'm going to break down the four horsemen and relate them to uh, building a household. I got to break it down because this will show you how the government is corrupt. So let's get right into it. The four horsemen. We're going to break it down as we go. I might come in at any time. The mind matrix.
People are awfully forgiving. Or they just don't understand what's been done to them.
We are at an epochal shift. We're at a point where the West could tip into complacent and quite well off redundancy, or we could play a decisive role in the future.
What the banks did was reprehensible. That was why there was the outrage of the greed of the bankers who gave them money that was supposed to help them lend to others, but they decided to use that money to pay themselves bonuses. For what? For record losses?
We are governed by corporations today, often by corporations that don't have very much interest in the United States of America.
I don't know what happened, man. What happened to the United States? It went so far in the ditch. You know what? At what moment did it all go bad? Was it disco? Was it Donna Summer? Is that what killed America?
We are entering the age of consequence. A rapacious financial system, escalating organized violence, abject poverty for billions, and the looming environmental fallout are all converging at a time when governments, religion, and mainstream economists have stalled. War, conquest, famine, and death. The four horsemen are coming. This is not a film that sees conspiracies. It's not a film that mongers fear. It's not a film that blames bankers or politicians. It's a film that questions the systems we've created and suggests ways to reform them. Over centuries, systems have been subtly modified, manipulated, and even corrupted, often to serve the interests of the few. we have continually accepted these changes. And because man can adjust to living under virtually any conditions, the trait that's enabled us to survive is the very trait that has suppressed us.
Most societies have an elite trying to stay in power. And the way they stay in power is not merely by controlling the means of production, to be Marxist, i.e. controlling the money, but by controlling the cognitive map, the way we think. And what really matters in that respect is not so much what is actually said in public, but is what is left undebated, unsaid.
For centuries, gatekeepers have manipulated our cognitive map. But in 1989, a computer scientist by the name of Tim Berners-Lee implemented the first successful communication between an HTTP client and server. The World Wide Web was born. It has since unleashed a tsunami of instantly accessible, freely available information. Just as Gutenberg's printing press wrestled control of the cognitive map away from an ecclesiastical and royal elite, today the internet is beginning to change governments, finance and the media. We are at the cusp of change. But to enact it, we must first understand the things that have been left unsaid for so long. To do that, we need context from people who speak the truth in the face of collective delusion. Because to understand something is to be liberated from it.
Now, it's really just not getting started, but in that little group, you didn't see no black men in that group. So let's continue.
The end of World War II, we had 50% of the world's gross domestic product. We were making 54,000 airplanes a year, 70,000 ships, et cetera, and we were the new Rome. And we recognized it and devised a power management scheme in the 1947 National Security Act to, we thought, manage it, and it worked fairly well during the Cold War. But we haven't.
So let's pause it right there and have some chit chat about what we're looking at. We're looking at the four horsemen. These are symbols. The four horsemen are symbols in the Bible. But we're not going to get into that right now about the Bible's interpretation. We're just going to get into how does this affect what I'm getting ready to show you, the black man and woman and building the household. Well, we was abducted or kidnapped or conquered into the system. Our culture was entirely different. But the so-called red man, Indian, and Chinese, yellow man, and the black man, brown man, our cultures were very similar. Very similar. But the Caucasian had developed a culture that wasn't like ours. And he brainwashed us or programmed us or conditioned our minds to be simulated or similar to his, and we integrated or grafted ourselves in his society or his system. And his system is getting ready to crash. So in his four horsemen, he's comparing his system with ancient empires that fell. But he's not talking to the black man. He's talking to his Caucasian buddies. They want to save this system, or revamp it, or renew it. Before it collapsed. It's like the Titanic getting ready to sink. And they're comparing what's going on now with what went on in the past. And black man and black woman, don't pattern yourself after the Caucasian world here in America. Be in the world but not of the world. That's another Bible saying. And come out of her means to come out of America and her ways, evil ways. And as we go closer and closer into the meat of this video I'm showing you, you will see where I'm coming from.
The other side of our inability to grasp the new world, if you will.
Empires do not begin or end on a certain date, but they do end, and the West has not yet come to terms with its fading supremacy. At the end of every empire, under the guise of renewal, tribes, armies, and organizations appear and devour the heritage of the former superpower, often from within. In his essay, The Fate of Empires, the soldier, diplomat, and traveler Lieutenant General Sir John Glubb analyzed the life cycle of empires. He found remarkable similarities between them all. An empire lasts about 250 years, or 10 generations, from the early pioneers to the final conspicuous consumers who become a burden on the state. 6 ages define the lifespan of an empire. The age of pioneers, the age of conquests, the age of commerce, the age of affluence, the age of intellect, ending with bread and circuses in the age of decadence. There are common features to every age of decadence. An undisciplined, overextended military, the conspicuous display of wealth, a massive disparity between rich and poor, a desire to live off a bloated state, and an obsession with sex. But perhaps the most notorious trait of all is the debasement of the currency. The United...
We're going to stop it shortly after I make this comment. This is what households nowadays are based on. That's currency or money, what we think is money. This is what the black woman uses as her security blanket. And this is what the brother defines or thinks makes him a man. Having plenty of money. So we're going to break it down some more in the next video. Stay tuned.